How's it going, everybody? Have you ever done something really stupid? Because I sure haven't. Okay, I may have carried a log that was double the capacity of my trailer and broke it. But it's fine, because I can fix it, and I actually know the guy who originally built the trailer, so everything is fixable. On top of that, the slabs that I got off of that log looked absolutely sick. On top of bending the heck out of the frame, I also accidentally broke the last remaining brake light that I had and ripped out the wires, and so the entire thing has to be replaced. Also, the last thing that happened just before I got the log off of that trailer was I broke the mounts holding the winch together, so that's going to have to be replaced as well. Now, I'd like to reiterate that the reason that I carried a log that was twice the weight capacity of what the trailer could handle was because my phone told me that the log I was carrying was cedar, and it turned out to be oak. Since I didn't have any leaves or needles to work with to identify it, all I had to go off of was the bark, and my app told me it was cedar. So the first repair I decided to tackle was to remount the winch, because I was going to use that to fix the rest of the trailer. Both of the U-bolts holding the winch mount together were completely mangled, and so I decided just to replace both of them. Now, I am convinced that these U-bolts would have held just fine if it wasn't for this cheap piece of metal at the bottom. These things are useless. And so what I decided to do was to make my own and then attach them to the same style of U-bolt. I just made this extra bracket out of scrap metal, and I'm using that on top of the bracket that actually comes with the U-bolt. So hopefully now it can actually hold the capacity it says it can. And then I swept out the trailer, which I then decided was completely pointless because I was going to flip the trailer over anyway so I could work on the bottom. I ran a snatch block connected to the axle and connected the winch through the snatch block and into a tree so that I could get this thing flipped over. This is one of the perks of having a lightweight trailer. Right here you can see how bad the trailer actually bent, but I was able to bend it back with a little bit of persuasion. And then I could finally flip the trailer back over, which was a bit more complicated than it was the first time, but I did get it eventually. And then it was time to actually reinforce the trailer, so I brought the trailer all the way over to Mark. Hey, it's Mark! Sorry to scare you. Scared the shit out of me. Mark had already gotten a jump on the trailer by this point. If you don't remember who Mark is the guy that pulled me out of the ditch. This guy. Now the thing about this trailer is that it's only rated for 1,200 pounds, and that's really all I should be carrying with it anyway, and so that is the capacity we're aiming at for the bed of the trailer. Now what we ended up doing was getting 3 of these really thick pieces of square bar and welding them into the channel of the angle iron. And so hypothetically, we should be able to go well past that 1,200 pound capacity. Not that I'm planning on ever doing that again, of course. Now the angle iron frame on the bottom of the trailer still had a bend in it, and so what we were doing was tacking one side of the square bar and then pulling the other side flush so it would pull the trailer bed flat. Now the trailer is back in basically functional order. Mark did go through and tack a few little pieces back together so that the frame was nice and secure, but then it was time to head off back home and then I can finish fixing the arch. One of the things I never talked about this log arch is even though it can handle way larger of a capacity than I expected it to, because it's made of wood, it really can't handle a fall. When I originally built this, I put these 1x4s on the back as a structural support, which worked fine as a structural support, but when I dropped it onto the oak log, it broke really easily. And so one of the improvements that I want to make is I want to replace these with 2x6s instead. It's still not a good idea to let the arch fall on anything, but it's going to be a lot more robust once I change these over to the 2x6s. I also decided to get rid of this eye bolt. I found that when you're pulling at a very steep angle, this just is going to have a tendency to rip right out of the arch. And so what I've done instead is I've just been using a strap and wrapping that around, and the eye bolt just gets in the way of that. But what that does is it takes the tension force pulling on the arch and turns it into a compression force, which makes the log arch so much more capable at picking up logs. Once I got all the 1x4s off, I needed to hand plane them down so that they were nice and flush and gave me a good glue surface so I could put the 2x6s on there. I just connected everything with wood glue and 3-inch wood screws. Now, I have had a handful of people ask me to make plans for this log arch so that they could build their own. So I actually ended up building plans for this. So if you're interested in looking at the plans for this log arch, go ahead and go down to the Ko-fi link in my video description. That link also has plans for a couple of the other things I've built as well. So if you're interested in plans for anything I've built on this channel, let me know what kind of plans you want and I'll add those as well. Because of the new pieces, the hole is completely plugged on the back end, but I did have to fill the hole on this side of the log arch. I basically just flooded the whole thing with glue and hammered in a dowel. It should work fine. I made such a mess with the sawdust. And then I could go through and match the paint. I got this paint that the can said outdoor on it, and I didn't really look into it. It's probably fine. And now that the arch is done, I can try and replace these brake lights on here. The entire system has to be replaced. And no matter what I did, I could not get these brake lights to come off, and I didn't really know how they worked, and so since they were broken anyway, it turns out they lift up. When it came time to actually rewire the entire trailer, I thought this was going to be a lot more difficult than it actually was. It turns out there's only wires and brake lights with a simple system like this, and so it's the easiest thing in the world to run. It really only took me about 5 minutes to rewire the entire trailer. The only thing you really have to remember is that you need brake lights, wires, and you have to make sure that there's enough gap at the front of the trailer so that you can make turns. To be honest, I was really worried about this step because I'm not good with wiring, but this was really the easiest thing in the world. One of the things I did learn, though, is that there is a left and right brake light, so I had to switch these around off camera. And that's the trailer, it's all done. I'm so happy I get to finally use this thing again. It's been down for a couple of months, but now I can go out and pick up some beautiful logs, and I can stay under the 1,200 weight capacity. Thank y'all for watching. Catch y'all next time.